Alright, hello everybody, Friendly Red here, back from the holidays, and ready to relay what's on my radar for this first month of the new year. We've made it past the halfway mark of the 2020s, and our starting point of January 2026 isn't exactly packed to the brim with genre-defining, blockbuster new releases, but rather, a good amount of smaller, perhaps more low-key games that have popped up on my radar. Before we get started, I want to give out the usual disclaimer, and say a few other things as well. Firstly, I suppose I want to apologize for this Red's Radar releasing a little bit later than usual. I typically try to have these videos ready by the first of every month, but I ended up not having a lot of time to work on this one after my last video was completed, as it was right before the busyness of the holidays kicked in. Since this video will be coming out a few days into January, some of the games I talk about here may have already been released, so again, apologies for the slight delay on this Red's Radar. Now, on to the usual disclaimer. Please keep in mind that release dates are always subject to change, and what's presented in this video may be out of date by the time it is posted. This year, I'm going to try to post updated new release dates to games I talk about in Red's Radar in the comments if a delay occurs, so please be sure to check down there for any potential changes. With all that info and setup out of the way, let's get into the first Red's Radar for 2026. We begin this first relaying of the radar with Vital Shell, a brand new top-down action roguelike, coming to us courtesy of independent developer Marvin Wizard. One of a few surprise releases I didn't know about until researching for this video, Vital Shell is a new roguelike/survivor-like to sink countless amounts of hours into, with a very distinct look to it, both compared to its contemporaries and in general, really. Taking heavy inspiration from games from the original PlayStation era, Vital Shell should be pretty familiar to anyone who's played Vampire Survivors, 20 Minutes Till Dawn, Megabonk, and any of the other countless top-down action roguelikes that have been releasing over the last few years. It's just you versus a constant, increasingly dangerous onslaught of enemies to mow down, this time with a heavy emphasis on mech-based combat, as you'll be able to control numerous different robot suits that are all inspired by typical fantasy archetypes. It's certainly a unique blend of old and new, mixing high-tech mechs and weaponry with fantasy class designs and the PS1 era visuals, and based on everything I'm seeing, it's all working together nicely, and should be another great game to just jump into for some quick fun, much like the games that came before and probably inspired it. And it's also going to be the perfect kind of game to play on the Steam Deck or many of the other handheld PCs out there. Not a ton else to say about this one, though I should mention that there is a demo available on Steam if you'd like to check that out before settling on a purchase. Vital Shell will be releasing on Wednesday, January 7th for PC. A bit over a week from Vital Shell's launch, the Nintendo Switch 2 will be adding another enhanced original Switch game to its lineup with the release of the Switch 2 edition of Animal Crossing: New Horizons. The Switch 2 edition also launches alongside a brand new version 3.0 update to the game that all players on both Switch 1 and Switch 2 will be able to access, and honestly, most of the interesting additions and changes lie within that update, but we'll get to that in a moment. The Switch 2 edition itself is nice, but a bit more subtle, I guess, with the main benefits of upgrading to it, including outputting at a higher resolution over the original Switch version, Joy-Con 2 mouse control support for decorating and custom design work, microphone support via the in-game megaphone item and game chat, and expanded player counts for online play, with up to 12 players on a single island at a time, up from a maximum of 8 on Switch 1. Again, it's all nice enough new additions to the game, but really nothing too crazy. Thankfully, if you already own the game on Switch 1, the upgrade pack for the Switch 2 edition is only $5, so at least Nintendo is aware that these additions aren't big enough to warrant the usual full $20 price point we've seen on other Switch 2 edition upgrade packs. I'm cool with the Switch 2 edition, but I do wish they went perhaps just a bit further with it and increased the game's performance alongside the resolution upgrade. I know 60 FPS or higher is certainly not at all necessary for a game like Animal Crossing, but previous games in the series have had higher frame rates, and I think smoother performance would just fit the game and its style really well. At the end of the day though, it's more stuff being added to one of my favorite and most played Nintendo Switch games, and that's only half the story, as we're also getting that version 3.0 update the same day as the Switch 2 edition, which as I mentioned, is a bit more interesting. The biggest addition of the 3.0 update is the new waterfront hotel run by Captain and his family, and it essentially acts as a bit of a flavor-changed happy home paradise, with you helping out Captain and the other hotel employees with creating and decorating the perfect rooms for guests to stay in, much like how you helped different Happy Home clients get their perfect dream home in that expansion. I suppose it's a bit been there, done that, but I really enjoyed my time in Happy Home Paradise, and it's been quite some time since I've done some hardcore interior decorating, and so I'll probably get sucked back into it for a while once this update arrives. There's a bit more in it as well, mostly in the form of quality of life improvements to some of the core game systems. You'll be able to expand your maximum in-game item storage up to 9,000, have Mr. Rossetti clean up large areas of the island and store whatever items were there for you using his new cleanup services, and even be able to create entirely new and separate islands from your main one via a new Dreamscape option with Luna whenever you decide to take a rest in a bed. Finally, there's some cool new in-game collaboration items and decorations coming with the update, with classic Nintendo toys and systems being added in, with said systems actually letting you play some classic games from them, similar to how it worked in the original Animal Crossing for GameCube. Though, to be able to access said games on the systems, you will need an active Nintendo Switch Online subscription, which is kind of a lame limitation. We're also getting LEGO furniture and clothing, and some new items, clothing, and even new villagers added to the game, all based off of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Splatoon. However, those items and additions will only be accessible via compatible Zelda and Splatoon series amiibo, whereas the LEGO collaboration items will just be added to the Nook shopping catalog. And so yeah, between the Switch 2 edition and version 3.0 update, there's quite a lot coming to New Horizons. It all sort of came out of nowhere, being announced randomly at the end of last October, but again, New Horizons is one of my favorite and most played games on Nintendo Switch, so you'd better believe I'm all for new features and additions to the game, whether they be added 5 months after the game released, or 5 years instead. I love New Horizons, and Animal Crossing as a whole, so I'm obviously very pleased with all this happening, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the game and playing it semi-regularly again real soon. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Animal Crossing New Horizons, alongside the version 3.0 update, will be releasing on Thursday, January 15th, for Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. Right before the end of our beginning of 2026, Code Vein 2 will release on January 30th. First unveiled at last year's Summer Games Fest, Code Vein 2 is a sequel I never really thought was going to happen, but am certainly not opposed to it happening. The original Code Vein was and still is commonly referred to as Anime Dark Souls, and yeah, that is a pretty apt descriptor. If you've played any of the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, or any of the other numerous Souls-likes that have released over the years, you'll know what to expect with Code Vein 2. Although that's not to say Code Vein or its sequel aren't bringing anything new to the table outside of the visual design and identity. The original game had a unique blending of rundown, post-apocalyptic urban environments to do your usual Souls-like exploring and combat in, with a few gothic and fantasy-inspired areas popping up as well, which helped it set it apart from the dark fantasy-looking locales you'd find in the Souls games. It looks as though much of that is returning for Code Vein 2, in addition to numerous other level themes and designs you'll get to see thanks to the power of time travel, which is playing a big role in the story of Code Vein 2. I do wonder just how far backwards or forwards in time the game will take us, as it would be cool to get some truly old-looking fantasy locales to play in addition to perhaps some far-flung sci-fi ones as well. It's been a good bit since the original game released, so I don't really remember too many specific details of it, but I do know I quite enjoyed the anime style and flair Code Vein brought to the Souls-like formula, with plenty of flashy special moves and attacks that look like they were ripped right out of some shonen anime. Additionally, the character creator was insanely detailed and fun to use, and plenty of people were able to bring their favorite anime characters into the game with great success. And from what we've seen of Code Vein 2's creator, it looks like it'll be even better than the original, and I cannot wait to see what the community cooks up with it. So based on the admittedly very little I've seen of the game pre-launch, Code Vein 2 is looking to be a bigger, more refined, and ambitious game than its predecessor, and I hope it turns out well. I will say though, while I did enjoy the first Code Vein, and am excited for the sequel, I'm not sure if I'm $70 excited for the game, you know? Like, it looks quality, and I'm sure I'd have fun with it, but I don't know, there's nothing inside me that's really urging me to pick this one up as soon as it releases, and I'll probably wait a bit for this one to drop in price before giving it a go. Code Vein 2 will be releasing on Friday, January 30th for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. With the Vital Shell, Animal Crossing, and Code Vein 2 talk done and dusted, it's time to move on to our honorable mentions. Going back to January 7th, the same day Vital Shell launches, we've got another game launching, or at least launching into early access, that being Oddcore. As the name suggests, this is quite the odd smattering of visuals and ideas packed into one game, but you know what? I'm really digging what I'm seeing here. Mixing retro-inspired visuals with spooky, entity-riddled liminal spaces, Oddcore tasks you with blasting your way through said spaces and entities, all within a 5-minute time limit, collecting new weapons and power-ups along the way. I'm not sure if there's a set end to a run, or if you want to try and just work towards a high score, or get past the standard 5-minute mark via upgrades and pickups, but regardless of all that, this game does look rather hectic and fun, and it certainly intrigued me with the premise alone. I don't know if I'll be buying into the early access right away, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it throughout its development, and I look forward to the day it reaches its full 1.0 version. This one will be out for PC. Next, we've got 2 new Metroidvanias hitting the scene, with Kotama and Academy Citadel releasing on the 15th, and Neo, Memories in Orbit on the 20th. Like Vital Shell, I didn't even know about Kotama's existence before working on this video, but I'm glad I ended up learning about it, as it looks pretty stellar. I mean, I'll usually look into any Metroidvania I learn about, as I'm a big fan of the genre in general, but putting my enjoyment of the genre aside, Kotama has a few elements that make it stand out to me, make it more enticing outside of being just another Metroidvania. And for one, the setting seems really cool, with the game taking place in and around a neo-futuristic cityscape and academy, which is unlike a lot of other Metroidvanias I can remember playing, at least in recent memory. And of course, the art leans heavily into that anime style I'm quite fond of, with plenty of vibrant and flashy colors present on all of the character designs, as well as the attacks they dish out too. I've got a pretty good feeling about this one, and I'm looking forward to trying it out sometime soon after it launches. This one will be out for PC. As for Neo, Memories in Orbit, it similarly stands out to me for a lot of the same reasons as Kotama. While not leaning into an anime style art aesthetic, it does have quite a striking look to it, with a brushstroke or watercolor paint-like look to its shading and environments. Speaking of those environments, they're also quite distinct, mixing together alien flora with regal metalwork, machinery, and structures, reminding me somewhat of the designs you may see on Protoss armor, units, and structures from StarCraft. The gameplay doesn't look like it's slacking either, with a properly dense and interconnected world to explore, with smooth and responsive 2D platforming and combat, tying the whole experience together. Between this and Kotama, I'd say Metroidvania fans are eating good this month, and if you've been craving some quality new experiences to check out ever since finishing up Silksong, I think Neo's got you covered. This one will be out for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. And returning back to the end of the month, we've got two more honorable mentions to discuss, with Don't Stop, Girly Pop being first up on the 29th. So this is essentially a Y2K hell version of Ultra Kill, with visuals that look like an early 2000s computer virus vomited all over your screen. And I gotta say, I'm really into it. I don't know, I think the straight up absurdness of the visuals of this game are really selling it for me, combined with the fact that, gameplay-wise, it sounds like it's basically another Ultra Kill, which is one of the most fun and satisfying movement shooters I've played, so you'd best believe I'm down for more games like it. Aside from that though, I gotta be honest, I don't really know if I have or can think of anything else to say about this one. It looks so weird and different from, I think, any other game I've ever played in my entire life, but I love how committed it is to its own absurdity and uniqueness. Also, there is a demo out for it now if you want to give it a try before deciding on a purchase, so that's something to keep in mind. This one will be out for PC. Finally, on January 30th, we have Team Fortress 2 Classified. So this isn't exactly a brand new release, or even a full release of a game in general, but rather a fan-made mod for TF2 that's finally making its way to Steam. After looking into it some more, it's insane just how much has been put into this project. This mod has been worked on and updated for over 10 years now at this point. And looking at some of the update history on the official website, it's nuts just how much has been added into TF2 thanks to this work done by the community. I'd highly recommend giving it a look yourself to see everything in detail, but in short, the core idea around TF2 Classified is to bring the game back to how it would have been around the time period of 2008 to 2010, while also adding in plenty of new features, game modes, maps, weapons, and more. It sort of reminds me of something like World of Warcraft Classic, bringing back the OG style or feel of the game, so longtime players can relive some nostalgic memories of the past, and new players can see where it all began. Of course, Classified takes this concept even further by adding to that core experience as well, which makes it even cooler than something like WoW Classic, in my opinion. It's been a few years since I've played TF2, but it's a game I've always enjoyed and will continue to come back to every now and then, and with this mod finally releasing on Steam, it may just get me to hop back in and experience a version of TF2 I can't say I'm all too familiar with, but I'm certainly not opposed to learning more about firsthand. And hey, maybe playing Classified will help distract us all from the unfortunate reality that is us never receiving a proper new Team Fortress game from Valve. And there we go. That's all the games that showed up on my radar for January of 2026. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's quite a lot of smaller, lesser-known games this month, but just because lots of these games are coming from smaller teams or are only releasing on PC, doesn't mean they're lower quality or anything. As has been becoming more and more apparent over the last few years, a lot of the best and most innovative titles releasing have been coming from these kinds of teams, ones that aren't necessarily beholden to strict AAA gaming deadlines, mandates, sales projections, and profit margins. And really, with the exception of the Switch 2 version and the 3.0 update for Animal Crossing, the games I'm most excited about this month are these smaller ones, with Vital Shell, Kotama, and Neo being the particular standouts in my mind. Yeah, Code Vein 2 does look good, and I do want to play it, but I just think $70 is a bit too much personally, and I don't mind waiting a few more months for it to drop down to a bit more of a reasonable price. I also got gifted a ton of smaller games over the holidays that I'm making my way through right now as well, so that's another reason I'll wait on Code Vein 2, and why a lot of the games here got stuck in the honorable mention section, as I probably won't be getting to them as soon as they release on account of all the holiday pickups and gifts. So a bit of a more low-key month of releases, but it's certainly not low in quality, and I'm looking forward to trying out a lot of what I discussed here very soon. But with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, I thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. I hope I was able to entertain, inform, and perhaps interest you in some upcoming games that you may not have known about. And last, but certainly not least, as always, I'll see you next time. I'm cool. No, I'm not.